formal meeting and it's being filmed, so those present are consenting to being filmed and the use of those images and sound recordings. Please could everyone mute their microphone when they're not speaking, and a reminder that this is a formal committee, so in order to contribute to the discussion, please raise your hand and I will of course endeavour to bring you in. Just before we start, I'd like to put on record a thanks to the members of staff who have turned around a very considerable number of reports in what was a very short space of time. We know challenges have arisen in the past when verbal updates have accompanied a meeting rather than written ones, and I hope that the written updates that we have to make a decision on this evening will be put to good use and will help to inform our decision making and help to make sure that those decisions are good ones that we reach. Shall we move on to item 1 unless there's anyone wants to come in at this point? Item 1, so we have apologies for absence. I've received apologies from Councillor Michael Knorr. It looks as though everybody else is here, so that's good. Item 2, declarations of interest, to receive statutory declarations of interest from members in relation to pecuniary interests and then non-pecuniary ones. So does anybody have any pecuniary interests that they'd like to express? No? Any non-pecuniary interests? No. Okay. Item 3, public open session, to adjourn for a minute of up to 15 minutes to allow members of the public to put questions or to address the committee through the chairman pertaining to matters specifically on this agenda. I know Councillor Ramsey has joined and would, I think, like to ask a question at some point, but can I ask those who are attending this meeting, please raise your virtual hand if you'd like to raise a question at this point. Okay, I'm not getting any indication. Councillor Ramsey, did you have a question in the public open session?
No, thank you. No, thank you, Councillor Fane.
No, you didn't. You just actually wanted to join the meeting to be polite. No, that's absolutely fine. Okay, moving on then. So item 4, minutes of meetings. To receive the minutes of the Town Centre Management Committee meeting held on the 4th of February, which was held at the Town Council. So I'm looking at the minutes. We'll go through them twice, firstly for accuracy and then for matters arising. So do we have any questions over accuracy of page 1? Page 2? Page 3. So that is all of it, isn't it? Okay, so am I to accept these as a true record? Would somebody be okay to move that, please?
Move it, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Item 5 then, so matters arising from this committee meeting. So bearing in mind, we have a few of these repeated on the agenda this evening. So any matters arising on page 1? Matters arising on page 2? Councillor Strawn.
Yes, under item 5, the question of the taxi rank, it may well have been brought forward over the last few months, but is there any further news on the taxi rank?
So my understanding of the taxi rank, and for members, if members of Biggleswade Joint Committee want to add to this, please do. But there are big decisions to be made and questions to be answered about the future of the, not the future of, but the new transport interchange hub, which is going at the station, which in turn has questions for Century House and to some extent the layout of parts of the market square. So the taxi rank is a little bit of a secondary question to some of that layout, which we'll be getting a few answers on in a few weeks' time, I believe, when Sam Colbeck attends the Town Council meeting, hopefully towards the end of October. So if that answers your question, Councillor Strawn. So any further matters arising on page 2? No, and matters arising on page 3. Councillor Russell.
The matter on 7B about teenage markets, I know it's not a priority at the moment, but we want as much as possible use of the market square, and we were going to look at alternative ways of possibly putting on a teenage market, and I wouldn't want that to get lost when the market is considered. I know we want to look at Saturday and Tuesday markets, but I would ask that that's still taken forward, please.
Absolutely. Can we minute that, please? And we do have an item on this agenda to discuss the market and how we manage it in future. So I think that's something that will definitely fit in to some of the work that will be coming from that agenda item. Okay, so those are the minutes of the last meeting. Those are the matters arising. So we now move on to items for consideration. Starting with item 6A, Remembrance Sunday. We're pleased to be joined with Wendy Smith from Royal British Legion. Kay, thank you for the report that you've put together on this. I think perhaps to take this item, it might be easiest to pass over to you if there's anything you'd like to draw attention to in this report. I know, just for members' awareness, Town Council works very closely with the Royal British Legion on the Remembrance Service event. We always have done, and it's a very good partnership. But obviously the Legion is in contact with government essentially, and looking to adhere to rules which will be rolled out nationally, and we will have to find ways of complying with those. So perhaps if I pass over to Kay and Wendy, if you'd like to provide a brief moment on this item, if that's all right, please. If you want to come off mute, Kay, I think you're on mute at the moment.
Sorry, is that better? We've decided to make a much smaller parade because we don't feel that a large parade would either, would not reassure people that we thought about the social distancing. It will consist of a short march down Station Road towards the town centre, and it will just consist of the Sea Cadets, adult volunteers, 3 Sea Cadets, a leader, and then dignitaries. It'll be as short as that. The march will then muster on the town square, where there will be a very short service. There will be no singing hymns. There'll be some background music. Obviously, the last post, the important bits, will still take place, and the raising and lowering of the flags. And the only people who will lay wreaths are the kind of dignitaries that have been in the parade. And I understand from Wendy we've had a couple more additions to that, but obviously we will make sure that that is socially distanced at the same time. We've also decided not to give out order of service because of the worries over COVID-19 and contracting it from things like that. So basically we're just going to give a crib sheet, a single sheet, to all the people who are most involved in the service.
Thank you, Kay. Are there any comments or questions from councillors, please? Sorry, Councillor Strawn.
Thank you, Chairman. What is the situation with regard to a road closure of Station Road and the police support for this? Because clearly, if people are going to be parading down Station Road, they will be conflicting with traffic. We've had difficulties with the police, not availability in the past. It's a much smaller event clearly this year, but we still need the road closure or something equivalent.
Absolutely. I've already organised that. The road closure for High Street and Station Road has been done, and I've also had confirmation from a SAG just in the last couple of days, Safety Advisory Group from Central Beds Council, that they're very happy with the arrangements that we've put in place.
Thank you. So really, I think the road closures will be very similar to what we have in other years, other than presumably Hitchin Street and Saffron Road.
That's right, yes.
Street and Station Road. And I think, if I could just, from the chair, that seems sensible, because it looks as though you'll be able to space people out along on High Street if, we get the numbers attending that we have had in the past. Other comments? Did Councillor Russell, did you have a question, or Councillor Pullinger? Councillor Russell, please.
I was just simply going to ask about the short service that you mentioned and who you've lined up to take it, knowing that Guy Scott is no longer in Biggleswade as of today.
Wendy's going to answer that for you.
Yes, everything happened at once, didn't it? And COVID restrictions and then the Guy leaving. But yes, we have the Reverend Martin Caesar, who is the pastor of the Biggleswade Baptist Church. And we also have the Reverend Canon Grant Fellows, who will be taking part in quite a number of the services at St Andrews during the interregnum, and Rosemary Bentley, who is a reader there. They'll be doing between them both services, the short one on Wednesday as well. Well, Canon won't be there on the Wednesday, but they will be there on the Sunday. And as Kay said, we've got the equipment, sound equipment, and it will just be very quiet music while the Roll of Honour is read. The RBL and the RAA were very keen to have that continue. And I'm hoping they'll play God Save the Queen, I think, at the end. I would say that, Richard Fuller, our MP, is coming, and Deputy Lord Lieutenant Robert Lovesey, I've heard this afternoon, will also be there. So they are the additional 2 Rees, because I've only just literally heard that they will be coming along. The other thing I'd like to say is obviously all the meetings that we've been through with all the key people, all the units, youth units, we have regular meetings, probably 5-6 a year, looking at how things have gone and what we've got to get in place, and those have gone on as well. And everyone was very keen, obviously, to ensure that we followed all the guidelines, so that there was no reflection on either the Town Council or the Royal British Legion. The Royal British Legion's last edict, and I checked today, there isn't a later one yet, was that parishes can hold parades or gatherings as long as we apply all the conditions already imposed on us, and with the consent and cooperation of the town or parish council, which we've always done anyway, albeit I've not been to one of your meetings before, and I also thank you for inviting me, because it's been a hard year trying to get this organised. There's so much disappointment from the youth groups, and it will be sad not to be able to see them, but that's their rules and they can't turn out anyway. So we're lucky that the Sea Cadet Band have got adult band members that used to support it, and they will be coming along. All the marching will have to be social distancing as well. And Madeleine, if you could do the reading, you will still be mayor. Yes, you are mayor. Yeah, if you could do the reading, please. And the MP and Councillor Watkins will be doing the Roll of Honour. I might get the Lord Lieutenant to do something because he's now coming, but I wasn't sure whether he was or not. But I'll probably get him to do the Kahima now he's coming, making useful. So, yeah. So it's not been easy, but we've tried hard to keep on top of everything, bearing in mind, how popular this event is and has been for all of my lifetime. The only difference is it's grown tremendously. But I can't stop without repeating my thanks to the council, because it just would not be possible, because our Legion members are few, and some are older than me, again with the RAA, and it's so enormous normally that it's more than one person's job. So I'm very grateful for all your support, not only practically but financially as well. So thank you for that. Yeah, if you've got any more questions, I'll happily answer them.
Thank you, Wendy, and of course on behalf of the Town Council, thank you for your efforts in this as well. It's a huge event. It's a huge event for us, and one that we continue to support. Councillor Pullinger, did you have a question?
So this is probably aimed at Kay, really, hopefully. So what provision have we made in terms of the risk assessment for public safety in terms of social distancing if a large number of members of the public were to attend?
I'm in the middle of that at the moment. The SAG are happy for us to go ahead as we are at the moment, but they have said that they do want to see the risk assessments just to satisfy themselves that, you know, everything's been thought of. So I'm mid-flow on those at the moment, because obviously I'll have to do one for the Christmas light switch on as well. So I'm doing those side by side.
Okay.
Councillor Woodhead.
Yeah, it just sort of follows on from that, really. And first comment, really, it's fantastic that we're able to do something this year. Obviously, it's been so difficult. We've had a couple of other important anniversaries this year, which have obviously not been quite to the scale that I think anyone would hoped. So it's really good that we're able to do something a bit more meaningful, I think, and a bit more purposeful for Remembrance Sunday. The sort of second point really is we're in a very odd position that I think, as Councillor Pullinger was alluding to, in terms of the public attending and all the rest of it, is that there has been a view, I think, around town I've picked up over the past few days that Remembrance Sunday has been cancelled and we're not having a parade and all the rest of it. And I think we need to balance a message with actually something is happening, but at the same token, I realise people's anxiety about not being too overwhelmed, and therefore there's problems with social distancing. So I just want to kind of tease out how we can sort of manage that as a council or with the RBL, because obviously we want to tell people things are happening, of course we do, but at the same time we don't want to be overwhelmed and it'd be a bit unmanageable. So I would welcome any thoughts. It's more of a question to everyone else rather than
I think Wendy's got an idea. She'd like to speak.
Great. Okay, Wendy, thank you.
We have, yes, we've discussed this as well. So you can't say, I've seen it on Facebook and it was a bit disappointing to see everyone sort of jump into that conclusion when
I agree. Yep.
You know, we always tried so hard to put something on. I think we missed VE Day because we were complete lockdown then, but we did do a very minimal VJ Day. I have seen that on Facebook, and it does concern me slightly, but as you have said, if we go out with lots of advertising, then we are going to get swamped, I would guess. I think we will get general public there. There's no doubt about it. I'm sure there will be some there. Hence the reason I wanted the high street kept open for their people to stand and spread. But we are, I was just talking to Kay just before we came on, we are hoping within a short time now, once you have the council have okayed all this, we'll try and get it in writing to all the key organisations that attend so that they at least know. We will have to watch our wording, but we will be able to put something on your website, Town Council website, and possibly Facebook. I'm just not quite sure how you put the wording. You don't want to say, well, we are doing it, we are remembering, but you can't say, please don't come. But, no, obviously there's going to be people there. So we are covering it. We're just waiting for you to give the final okay, and then we can sit down and put all these plans down in a letter form to explain to folk the situation as it is at the moment. There's always the outside possibility, and I hope it is, that something else might happen. It might have to go by the board altogether, but we're just keeping our fingers crossed that things still keep improving, really. This is what we'll have to cover in the letter as well.
Thank you. Thanks.
Any final comments from councillors? No. Well, thank you very much for attending, Wendy. I think we all feel a lot more reassured. I think nobody wants to see the event not go ahead, and it's great that you have already started to put so much thought into how we can make it work for Biggleswade and how we can go ahead and honour this very important part of the year. So thank you. With that, I think we can move on to item 5. Sorry.
You'll excuse me, I will get ready and depart. I've got another Zoom meeting in about 10 minutes. So.
That's okay. Before the break starts.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
You're welcome. So item 6B, Christmas event, for office manager and town centre operations manager to present a written report describing how far the planning for this event has progressed. Before we start on this, the report makes reference to a meeting. This was a meeting which a few councillors had informally with staff a few months ago to start the ball rolling and to start some thinking about what a future event might look like. No decisions have been taken. That's for this committee. So shall we start with, shall we start with comments from councillors this time? And then I'll bring you into this discussion, of course, Kay, and you as well, Simon. So Councillor Knight, please.
Thank you. So thank you for the report. That's fantastic. I really wish we could have a Christmas fair this year, but I'm also really quite concerned about social distancing, and also worried that a potential future lockdown could cause a last-minute cancellation and the potential cost implications of that. So I think my preference really would be to move away from having a single Christmas fair this year, unfortunately, and I would really prefer to see sort of multiple options presented tonight. We only really seem to have one, but my preference would be really, I think, for some additional, perhaps automated entertainment to complement the normal lights, to bring pleasure and to bring additional visitors to the town throughout the whole Christmas period. But to do that not just on one evening where I think crowding could be an issue. I think the idea of a screen and a children's performance video is really interesting and worth exploring. I wonder, is there a location in the town where that could be installed throughout a month-long period, and perhaps be run unattended at a certain time, maybe with a light show or something like that? And really my thinking, therefore, is that perhaps the community could then visit the town not all on one night, but throughout the whole Christmas period, without fear of breaking social distancing, and helping to really increase traffic to businesses in the town throughout what is otherwise a very critical Christmas period. The other question I have is there's reference in here to a £25,000 Christmas budget that's already been allocated. And I wondered if it would be possible to get a little bit more of an understanding around what that's been allocated to, please.
Kay, would you like to come back on those?
Yes, sure, absolutely. The two figures I've got, there's £18,000 in the budget for the lights, and that was a 3-year contract. So this is our last year with that contract. And the other element is the Jap Sounds side of things, which they normally do all our sound systems for the normal Christmas fair. They've just adjusted their costings to allow for a light show, which would shine right over town, and would take place from 4 till 8 on that Friday in November. And basically you get a light show all over the centre, so it'd be quite spectacular. But it would mean that you could easily social distance, because nobody needs to go near it particularly. You could look at it from a distance, and seem like quite a good idea, bearing in mind the current circumstances.
Thank you. Councillor Pullinger. You're on mute.
Sorry, I just wanted to echo a couple of the points that Councillor Knight made, but also add a couple of my own. So, I mean, my view around holding an event is essentially similar. That I think, when you think about the numbers that we normally get to that event, holding any sort of event is likely to lead to numbers that I don't think we can safely cope with in the current circumstances. So I'm really not very keen on us progressing down that route. In terms of what sort of thing we should do instead, I think that I like the idea of doing something to bring people into the town throughout the Christmas period. Now, the idea I had was something a little bit different, which would be potentially we could arrange for some sort of Santa's Grotto type thing with the relevant social distancing, etc., to be on the market on the Tuesdays and Saturdays in December, to draw people into the town who may then go, and hopefully will go and spend money in our businesses during that period. I also had some questions around the £25,000 budget, which you I think is partially answered. So the £18,000 is covered by an existing contract. Is the remaining £7,000 covered by an existing contract that we're committed to, or do we
No, not at all.
have to
No.
approve that?
Sorry to interrupt, I do apologise. And no, we've not committed to that at all in any way, shape or form. It was just that during the last meetings, you did ask me to look at a light show or something similar. So I've been out and had a look at our previous supply, knowing that they were reliable basically, and they could do the light show for us if we wanted for a very similar cost. Simple as that.
Okay, so currently we're committed to the 18,000.
Yes.
The 7,000 is remaining to effectively be spent. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
I think one thing that's worth noting from the informal meeting we had, I'll bring in Councillor Strawn in a moment. One thing that's worth noting from the meeting that we had a couple of months ago, I think it was the end of August probably, which is a little bit early to be discussing Christmas, but we said, or Councillor Knight suggested some kind of either rolling event / light show / something which is similar to what's on the in the report here. But there is also the option potentially of maybe going for more of a street food / market style thing, perhaps that we'd normally run with the Christmas fair, but perhaps with no great switch on moment, and not spending the amount of money and having a normal draw that we would do into the town centre. So that was another idea that was floated. Councillor Strawn, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Looking at the fact that we're quite clearly going to have some kinds of restrictions on people's physical presence in the market square, is there any way that we could arrange for whatever we do to be live streams on YouTube or something equivalent, so that, say, with the schools have been performing, that the public as a whole in Biggleswade will be able to see what they would be able to see on the market square? Obviously, we'd like people on the market square, but it's going to be very difficult with the likely constraints that there are going to be. So are there any other ways that we can actually publicise it so that more people can get the benefit of it in the same way as they would normally by being physically present?
My answer to that is I'm not sure. Kay may have a view on that. Shall I bring in Councillor Russell and then we can come back to staff?
I was going to say that I fully agree with what you've just mentioned about what we discussed before, that we cannot encourage huge numbers into the market square at the same time. What JAP are suggesting in this report seems to be a one-off thing, and I don't think that's really what we wanted. We wanted something that could run at least 2 or 3 evenings a week for the whole of the Christmas period. I think we were talking about laser lights or something that could be set up and then just switched on and off. We were talking about the fact that we wouldn't have a moment when the lights are switched on, that they would just be switched on when it was dusk, rather than a moment that everybody's looking forward to, and that's the moment that draws everybody into the market square. And we did also talk about the possibility of some food stalls. We've had that kind of event before that Simon's organised, and it would mean that people could buy street food, but it would be very much lower key than we've ever had before. But the concept of a few stalls on the market square is not much different from the market, and we already have the safe layout that Simon's designed. So I think we could use that. I worry a bit about the JAP one, because I think we don't want that one-off thing, because if it is one-off, even if it's able to be seen from quite a wide area, it's still encouraging people into a relatively small space. So I don't know what else we might be able to find that would provide something extra on maybe 3 evenings a week, maybe a Wednesday and a Friday and a Saturday or something, to give a bit extra to try and draw people into the shops. I haven't got any immediate answers. Councillor Pullinger mentioned something like a Santa's Grotto, but I don't think that's a realistic prospect when you know, to encourage children to come and see Father Christmas. I don't think that's going ahead in any of the places that I'm aware of where they normally have a Father Christmas. So I'm not too keen on that. I think it's quite sad. And the idea of trying to involve local businesses, I wonder if it would be better to try and do something for children in the way that we have in the past, with perhaps asking businesses to put something in their shop windows for children to go through and identify and tick off on a list or something, and they get a small prize for completing it. That way you're doing something for the children as well as trying to get businesses involved, and hopefully if parents are going around with children looking for things in shop windows, they might actually frequent the shops as well. That's all I need to say, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Russell. If I might just come back on one of those points. Kay and I had a brief phone call earlier today, and I won't put words into your mouth, Kay, but something that we did that I know Kay has looked into is having something that could sit on the market square for the whole of December, for example, and have a light show at a particular time. If I'm not mistaken, Kay, it seems that that's just not probably not going to be viable in our town centre, making sure that that equipment stays safe and, you know, out of the hands of how should I, individuals who sometimes like to sit in our town centre, for example. So that I think was probably response to the point about having something too permanent in there. But let me go to Councillor Knight.
I think Councillor Woodhead may have had his hand up first.
Sorry, did you? I beg your pardon. Sorry, Councillor Woodhead.
On mute.
No, thank you. Just a very brief point. I mean, on the Santa's Grotto issue, most of the places that have got them locally have sold out already. That's how popular they are. Frost at Willington, various other places have all completely sold out already in October. So there is an opportunity for us to do something there, because I think there's a lot of latent demand, but equally we may not have the risk appetite. But I just wanted to just to point that out. I'm kind of in the zone of knowing a bit about Santa's Grottos at the moment, so I just wanted to inject some reality. But it's, yeah, it may be too much, but I do know they're extremely popular locally, and you know, if we could do something, I'm sure that would be great. But equally, it wouldn't be the end of the world. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
So thank you, Councillor Woodhead. Councillor Knight.
Thanks. So I'm thinking how we move this forward. We seem to have the ingredients of something, but not quite a solution that we can agree to tonight. So I would like to propose, given that we don't have any time is of the essence, and we don't have any more committee meetings, I think in the next in the timescales we'd need to move. Can we form a quick working group to work with officers to come up with a recommendation to take to council in the next week 10 days, please?
Is there a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Pullinger. Okay.
Yes, I'll second that. I think there have been some excellent ideas. I mean, I in terms of Councillor Russell's around the sort of treasure hunt around the town, for example, I think that's a really good idea. I think it does just need a few of us to get together to go through them all and come up with the officers with a firm proposal.
Okay. Are there any further comments on that proposal? Otherwise, we'll take a vote on it. No. Okay. I certainly think that's something which is workable. It's clear that the components are there, and there's several good ideas. So the proposal is that we set up a working group. We say a working group, hopefully just a group of individuals to meet at least once before the next council meeting, so that we can just tie up some of the loose ends here and come up with something firm that council can hopefully approve. Councillor Alban.
Yeah, just on timescales, is the intention to actually bring the recommendations of this working group to the very next council? Is that what we're saying?
Actually, even that is tight, isn't it?
That's too tight.
Oh, well, what are the timescales? When do we need to start making firm plans in order to get things going for Christmas?
Okay, Councillor Knight, what was your thought around timescales?
Sorry, as you say, I don't think we can meet the next council meeting. I was just going to look at the calendar, but I guess we would have to aim for the one after that and hope that gives us sufficient time. Let me just find the calendar.
Okay, is that even that is tight, is it not?
It is. It is. I mean, when you think most of these events that we're running 6 months ahead of time, so we're really, really tight, and the SAG don't like it when we do things last minute at all.
27th of October would be the council meeting after that.
Yeah. Can I
just
bring in the clerk and then Councillor Russell?
Okay. I think it's an excellent idea to have some form of joint working group. However, I think there's a range of different ideas that we've listened to tonight. I would encourage Kay to phone up some of our counterparts in other councils to see what they're doing as well. And I think it's not unrealistic for Kay and other officers to quickly put together another paper with a wider range of potential opportunities, if we want to try and move as quickly as we possibly can. And I think it really is interesting if we can try and just reach out to our other public sector colleagues and just see what the general appetite is for things, and just to see if we can find something that's really quite innovative and would put Biggleswade on the map. So I don't want to speak on Kay's behalf, but maybe I should try, which is I think that we can create something quite quickly, and maybe that might be suitable for members without having to literally kind of find some time quickly. Just a suggestion.
Okay, I think that's sensible. Councillor Russell, and then I will make a brief comment. Councillor Russell.
I was going to say that if time is of the essence, could we not nominate perhaps 3 of our number who want to be closely involved to work with the officers and maybe take some delegated decisions as long as they're within the financial regulations? We can't keep having things coming back to committees and council all the time. And I think we've had a good discussion tonight, and I think we all know more or less where we're trying to go. We just need to firm up on some of these things. So I would propose that we do nominate, say, 3 people to work with the clerk and Kay and Simon to try and bring this to a head.
Councillor Strawn.
I'd second Councillor Russell's proposal, with a view then a verbal report could be given to full council next week as to where we are at, and that way we'll all keep on top of it. But I think that's the practical way forward, rather than another working group which will have struggled to get anything done in that timescale.
Are you okay with that, Councillor Knight? I realise you've made a proposal. I don't think it's drastically different from what you suggested.
I think that's fine, yeah.
Title.
Yeah, I'm happy for that.
Okay, okay. That's fine. I think we've got a clear indication of the direction we're going in then. So are there any last comments on that, on the proposal from Councillor Russell? No, okay. All those in favour of that proposal then, please. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Now that that's been agreed, do we have any volunteers who would like to put themselves forward to be one of those handful of people to work intensively with the staff? If you're a volunteer, please raise your hand now. 1, 2. Okay, there we go. That's sorted then.
It was always going to be you, Mr. Chairman.
I know. All right. Thank you.
I was staring at you, Madam Mayor.
There we go. Good. Great proposal. Thank you, Madeline, for the proposal, and thank you, Councillor Strong, for seconding it. Thank you. Really good. Okay. Yes.
I'm going to bow out now. If you don't need me for anything else, is that okay?
Absolutely. Thank you very much for both your reports and for your updates.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Kay.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 6C, the A Board's policy. We have in front of us a written report on the A Boards and a timeline to look to implement this perhaps better than where we're currently at with it. So can I have comments from councillors, please, and then we'll bring in Simon. Councillor Pullinger.
Okay, thank you. I am obviously quite keen to see this policy that we put in place implemented, and obviously note the fact that the go live date is now set for the 1st November. I guess what I do have is an ask really of the town centre operations manager in relation to this, and there's 2 parts to that. One is it's really around being proactive in terms of identifying those A boards that are currently wouldn't be compliant with the policy, and encouraging the owners of those to take action, if possible, before the 1st of November to try and really tidy up the town. And also there are some A boards that I'm aware of, which are not actually related to businesses within the town. So there's one in particular related to a chauffeur company that's been chained to one of the bike racks on the high street for at least a year, if not much longer. So really, it's just that ask to, even though there's no enforcement date until the 1st of November, if we could start encouraging compliance with the nature of what we're asking sooner, that would be good.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I bring in Simon and then the clerk?
Can I just say something before Simon, actually, if that's okay?
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's just my message to Simon, really, because we're having I know, Simon, that you've done some proactive work today in regard to this. So if you could really highlight that to us as well, I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been round the town today, and I've been taking round the policy and the application form to remind people or remind businesses of the legal requirements under the Highways Act, and that this has been passed down to the town council. I've spoken to a number of businesses today and also discussed with them where their boards are currently, or street furniture is currently situated. A lot of them have taken a very, very positive attitude towards the ideas that I've put forward, and they are more than aware that there are going to be certain things that they're going to have to do to make sure that they meet the legal requirements. Regarding the boards that are from outside of the town centre, I have the details of those, and I will be contacting those companies and discussing that with them.
Thank you, Simon. Are there any further comments on this? I think the recommendation is to note the content of this report and the schedule. Are there further comments on this? I think certainly from the chairman's perspective, I think we have scheduled our next TCM meeting for early December, which looks like a pretty good time to check in on this, looking at the timelines that have been presented to us. So are we okay to note the recommendations of this report? Yes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Simon. Item 6D. Biggleswade Town Council operated car parks for the assistant clerk to provide an oral update on the progress of the parking orders. Philip, can I pass to you for the update, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. What I would like to say is that there is, well, there's been some progress at long last, which I'm pleased to report. It's taken a long time coming. Members will recall that the parking orders were first discussed in the town council in February of this year, and in early March I passed the information on to Central Beds, and it seemed to have got lost in the system. Then we had lockdown, but in May I reminded them again, and then at monthly intervals continued to remind them, and we were getting nowhere fast. I then had the support of Councillor Ian Bond, who made some representations, and again got some acknowledgements, which was fine, but again for some reason nothing was passed on through the system. Eventually, in the last week, I managed to get some sense and some response, but it seemed to me that no one member of the staff at Central Beds seemed to be in possession of all the facts, to use my little phrase. In other words, they did not have knowledge either of all the legislation or all of the procedures. Everybody seemed to know a little bit. Fortunately, today, I got a very good response from the senior technical officer at Central Beds. Her name is Emily Hurst, and I would like to mention her name because for the first time I actually feel that we are getting somewhere, and she actually has a complete overview of what needs to be done and what procedure we have to follow. Basically, legislation says that we do have to consult to change the parking orders, because basically there are changes in the times that cars can be allowed to park in the car parks, extended periods of free time and so forth, and also a change to the maximum time has already been mentioned in Den Alban car park, that vehicles can actually stay for a much longer period. With that in mind, therefore, what they are going to do on our behalf is to draft provisional notices next week, and they will come to us to have a look at, to make sure they correspond with what the council policy has been agreed. And then the consultation will start, which will include publication in the usual way in the local papers, copies to statutory consultees and the police, and we would also have to publicise that by putting up notices in the car park. So it does seem that we are getting somewhere at long last. And then following that, there is the order making process itself, and I'm waiting for further clarification on that, but at least we are actually at the starting gate now, and I am much more confident than I have been for a very long time that we're actually going to move things forward. Standard consultation period is 21 days, and then after that, Central Beds can give us a timeline as to when they think the process will be completed and the permanent parking orders can actually be implemented.
Thank you for that update, Mr. Truppin, and thank you for your perseverance over this. I know it's something which is very tricky, particularly given that you weren't involved with the parking orders first time they came around. So massively appreciate that update, and glad it looks like it's moving forward. Do we have comments from councillors, please? No. Councillor Bond.
Philip, is there any chance you could copy me on any correspondence with Emily? Emily is very capable, and if I can help in any way, I'd just like to be able to make sure that this carries on, because we've made some progress. I'd like to make sure that we get to the end of sorting these parking orders out this year.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, through you. Yes, I can certainly copy in the email I received from Emily. I mean, I am really impressed with her. I wish we'd had contact from her before. That's all I can say, because we could have been at this point several months prior to where we are now. But I do agree, with only one contact from Emily Hurst, I already am impressed with her knowledge and depth of intuition in terms of what needs to be done and what our aspirations are. So yes, I'll pass on a copy. If anybody else wants a copy, please let me know.
Brilliant. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. I've been a bit of a broken record in council meetings because this has been a matter arising on the agenda, and I'm kind of keen that it doesn't fall off. I wonder whether Mr. Truppin would be able to share a sort of a Gantt chart or something indicating the timeline, because it sounds like what we have now should be reasonably deterministic, and that would save me asking the same tedious question every 2 weeks, please.
Yes, well, I think as I indicated, the timeline depends very much on further information that has to be finalised by Emily herself, and she would actually then give a clearer timeline once she's finalised the notices. So I will work with her and then be able to produce some sort of chart at that stage, but it probably won't be until the middle or end of next week, if members will bear with me on that, until I've had further communication with the officer at Biggleswade.
I'd be really happy if you're able to share an indicative timescale next week. That would be great. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Any further comments on this, councillors? No. Okay, well, thank you again, Philip, in particular for your perseverance with this. It looks like we're making progress, and we look forward to receiving those updates, given that we're now really got the wheels in motion on it. Item 6E, markets. So we have a written report from the Town Centre Operations Manager, including recommendations. Comments, please, councillors. Councillor Pullinger.
Thank you. So the first is a question and then a comment. So my question is really around the Tuesday market, and obviously note the what the plan is for that. I was just wondering, do we have permission to close the street if we need to, if we expand further as we go forward in the future, or would we need that separately? And then in terms of the actual proposal around the strategy, can I make one suggestion of a slight difference to the approach, in that I think before developing the strategy and the plan and taking that to the working group, can I suggest that there's actually a meeting with the working group first to gain any ideas and input, quite informally, but just to make sure that some of those ideas get into the mix before it's developed, rather than it being presented and then those ideas being thrown in.
Okay. I will bring in Peter in a moment. In answer to the first question, my understanding is we can close Market Street whenever we want to. However, the Tuesday market is traditionally on the paved area and occasionally in the north side bays, so that shouldn't be, unless we're looking at some kind of rapid growth for some reason.
And sorry to interrupt.
That's
I
okay.
appreciate that it's not something for the now. I'm thinking more for the strategy piece for the future potentially. Thank you.
Yes. Peter, did you want to come in on Councillor Pullinger's second point related to the working group and how it should operate?
Yes. I mean, in principle, I think it's a good idea, but I know from speaking to Simon that he is I think well aware of the kind of conversations that have been happening over a long period of time now, connected to transforming our marketplace offer, and I would like to take advantage of Simon's expertise in this particular area and his knowledge of other councils' practice in this regard. And I'd like to give Simon the opportunity of kind of sharing that vision with us as quickly as he possibly can. I mean, my only concern, and I'm having this conversation really in front of Simon, is, you know, if we can possibly kind of fast forward some of this, then I'd be even happier than I am with the report that he's done in such a short period of time. But I'd like Simon to really, to give us that transformative sense about how we can really drive this forward, and a real innovative sense about his own expertise in this matter. And I'd like Simon to be given that opportunity of doing that. I'd also like to stress that rather than having a members group, I would like it to be an officers and members group, and for us to all work together in regard to this. If there needs to be a chair, then I would suggest that it's chaired by an officer in this particular instance. And let's try and really drive this and make it happen as soon as we possibly can. So thank you for Simon for getting this going, but I think a little bit more pace, it would be welcome.
I think, yeah, I will come to you in a second, Councillor Pullinger. What Mr. Tarrant is getting at is that we need to find new ways of working, and the market needs a lot of work, and different ways of doing things might be, might develop a new model for future. But that's from the chair, but that I think is it in a nutshell. Back to you, Councillor Pullinger, and then Councillor Straw.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to defer to the clerk's sort of proposed way of working to see how it works in a different way, and it's for him to guide us in that. I think one other potential suggestion to consider in terms of a group is whether we people from outside of the officers and members, so maybe traders or a representative of the traders, for example, might be worthwhile having on that group as well.
Mr. Tarrant?
Well, I've already spoken to Simon about, and I don't want to take his the noise away from his opportunity, is I totally agree with what Councillor Pullinger just said. What we need to feed into this, and I've already said this to Simon, is what are the expectations of our community? What are the expectations of our traders? What other intelligence can we bring to this conversation to try and guide us in a direction of travel where we have a situation at the moment, which I understand, where our shops don't necessarily get on with our market, and our market doesn't necessarily get on with our shops. So we need to find a place where we bring that whole community together, and both of them can take the benefit of having that different audience into the town. And that's one of the challenges that I want Simon to try and solve for us all.
Councillor Strawn, did you want to comment?
Yes, in view of Mr. Tarrant's comments, which I think is the way forward in his recommendation, I would like to move what he's proposed on the basis that this will move things forward. And I think it's the quickest way of getting on, rather than having lots of different ideas flying around for the rest of the evening. We've employed the clerk to make recommendations and to move the council forward. Therefore, I'm more than happy to propose his proposal.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
It's seconded. Okay. Is there a, before I take a vote on that, just for some clarity, is there a view from anyone, staff or councillors, how many people should form that working group? Something I am, that's probably from a councillor perspective, how many councillors should be represented? The reason I say this is because we have had working groups in the past which have basically comprised the entire committee, and I don't know the way that others feel about that, but if this is an ongoing project, we need a few people to be perhaps very engaged, would be my suggestion, without throwing a number out there. Councillor Knight, did you have anything?
Yeah, I support the proposal, and I think you're right. I think a small number is key, and if it's going to include traders as well, I mean, probably in the range of 3 to an absolute maximum of 5 councillors would feel appropriate to me.
Okay, I'd see the clerk is nodding his head. Mr. Tarrant, yes, sorry.
Those are the exact figures that I had in my own mind. So yes, I totally agree.
3 to 5 councillors, plus obviously yourself and Simon, and then we can have a conversation about traders. Okay, that's the proposal. I'm looking at the, we'll come to the timelines in a moment. So I have a proposal, it's been seconded. If there are no further comments on that, I'll move to a vote. So all those in favour of a small working group to set up to manage the market and help, once Simon has the strategy, to help to execute on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yes. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. In terms of the timelines, this has obviously, there's a Gantt chart on the following page, just on the back of the report. I'm looking at this, and Simon or Peter, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, I think based on this, perhaps a healthy time to look at the first meeting of that working group would probably be either the last week of this month or the first week of next month. Please shout me down if I'm speaking out of turn, but if that is probably the way that I'm interpreting this Gantt chart, if that seems sensible.
That's the way that I interpret it, unless Simon has a different view to me.
No. Okay, do we have, no, now we've established the working group, do we have 3 to 5 volunteers who are interested in joining this working group? Please raise your hands if you are interested. 1, 2, 3. Councillor Bond 4. Councillor Fage 5. Okay, right, I'm in there as well. Thank you. I don't want it to be exactly the same as the Christmas market working group. That would not be healthy. Okay, thank you. So we'll look to meet, hopefully, if not by the start of November, certainly in that first week. And thank you again for the comprehensive report, Simon. I think, again, we've reached a good decision as a result of having, good information in front of us to work from. Item 7, items for information. So we have street furniture. Unfortunately, Councillor Frank Foster can't join us for this. What a pity. He's been on for long enough. I thought he'd be able to come to celebrate that we look like we might have a timeline. The Works Manager unfortunately can't make it this evening. So Mr. Tarrant, if you'd like to update us, please.
Yeah, so I was going to say, apologies from Bob, who's unfortunately away sick at the moment. I know, and so does Bob, the importance of getting this done as soon as we possibly can. And, you know, our first thoughts there that we might have our own public realm team to be able to do this, but realistically, we would be able to do 2 benches per week. Yeah, that's going to take far too long and is not an acceptable option. I know that Bob is reaching out now and is looking to get some quotes as soon as he possibly can. The timeline on that is to get some quotes by the end of the week, and for the work to be completed by the end of December. So I see no reason why we can't adhere to that. And obviously we have Section 106 money to take to ensure that that pays for this. So I think at long last we've got some impetus here, and we need to get this done as soon as we possibly can. Once we've got those quotations, then I don't see no reason why I can't make that decision, and then I'll bring that information back to committee to give you absolute assurance that we've got some pace to this, because getting those sorted as soon as possible will make such a difference, I think. Yeah, because they are generally in a poor state of repair at the moment. Yeah.
Councillor Alban.
Thank you, Chair. Here's a question really. The Section 106 money that's available, is that sufficient, do we think, to cover what the costs might be? And if not, is other funding available to cover the difference?
Mr. Tarrant, do you know the answer to that question?
From my sense from speaking to Bob is that he believes that the £5,000 is sufficient, and we've got the purchase order and everything is lined up connected to that. The proof of the pudding will be getting those 3 quotes in, but my sense is that we're in the right ballpark. My sense.
Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, it was just a clarification around the actual process and procurement process. So my understanding would be under the financial regulations, if it's over 3,000, that it would need council approval to actually progress once the quotes have been received. I'm willing to be corrected, but that's my understanding of the reading of the financial regulations.
Shall I respond?
Yes, please.
Yep, you are correct that the financial regulations say that the clerk can make decisions of up to £3,000. If it's 3 to 5, then it needs to go back to the chair. In this particular case, it's not money being expended by us. Effectively, we've got a purchase order, so I'm happy whatever way you want it to happen. All I effectively want to do is to try and make this happen as quickly as we can.
Thank you, Councillor Bond.
Do you have specifications to actually what we're asking people to do to these benches, and also how long we expect basically the work to be guaranteed for?
Yeah. To answer the question, the first part of the question, as you'll see in Bob's report, and hopefully I'm encouraging this to all our officers now, we can't do anything of this ilk without a specification. We can't measure anything against us without a specification. So Bob is in the process of doing that, and we will use that as a point of reference when we try and come to a conclusion as to what is the best quote. And obviously part of that will be making sure that we have some sense about how good that making good, how long that will last for going forward. So yes, I'd agree with Councillor Bond. We need to make sure that we have that in place.
Thank you. Councillor Strawn.
Thank you, Chairman. The observation I've got is Section 106 funds are being used rather than Central Bed's income budget, so to speak. It looks as though funds that were designed for capital projects, effectively for Biggleswade, are being diverted for what should be effectively routine maintenance, or should have been routine maintenance. We've got to have it done, but it's just an observation.
Yeah.
Councillor Russell.
Might I suggest that since it is Section 106 money, that we leave it to the clerk's decision on this one? I think we're just making things unnecessarily complicated if we want to take it back to committee or council.
Mr. Tarrant.
One other point I would make, and I think again what we don't appear to have yet is a schedule of works. So Everything that we do, everything that is part of our furniture should have a schedule of upkeep. We should know when we did something to it and when we need to make it better. So we don't have any surprises and we don't have to go down the Section 106 route. So my conversations with Bob are, let's have a clear sense across the whole architecture of what we maintain about how we maintain it properly. Yeah.
I think everybody would be very supportive of that. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. I'm really keen to see this move forward quickly. I guess the concern I have is obviously we haven't had the opportunity to see the specification yet, and I appreciate that's being drafted. It's not really clear to me whether we're talking about revarnishing them, rubbing them down, and whether that's going to last a year, or whether we're talking about replacing timbers, which might last 5 years. So I'm not quite sure how long this will last. I guess unless the clerk's able to answer that immediately, I would certainly appreciate for information receiving sort of further information on the specification and quotes when that information is available. But I really don't want to hold things up. Mr.
Truppin.
Yes, I don't know whether Peter, the clerk, has had a chat with Bob on this. I have. If Peter, you're happy for me to fill in the information that I've received from Bob for the benefit of members. Yeah, what Bob and I had an informal discussion around what possible works there would be, and considering the number of benches, he was of the view that each bench, in a way, is in a different state of disrepair, and some will possibly require replacement bench parts, seating, planks, and so forth. Others may just require a repaint and a revarnish. So although you can write a specification, obviously each one has to be looked at and inspected, and there may be a different outcome for each piece of furniture.
If I may, I'll bring Mr. Tarrant in a second, and then Councillor Pullinger. If we wanted an example of what a good bench looks like, interestingly, the ones under Century House, which are less exposed to the elements, are in a much better state because obviously the rain doesn't hit them and things like that. So if we wanted an example of what good looks like, then that could potentially be a good starting point. I'll bring Councillor Pullinger in first, and then back to the clerk in a moment.
Thank you. And I sort of take on board the comments that have been made, and also from the clerk in particular around the urgency to get this moving. I'd like to make a proposal that we essentially make it clear that this committee authorises Peter to make a decision on the basis that it won't be more than £5,000. And then I think that shows that we are, as a committee, are approving spend on this specific expenditure to refurbish the benches within our authority, and I think that probably covers us overall from the financial perspective, but it also allows the project to be progressed with urgency. I'd just like to add, I'd be keen obviously for us to at the following council meeting to receive a report from the clerk with the details of the quotes that were considered, but post the decision being made.
I'll second that.
Second that, Chairman.
Okay, that's seconded. Okay, are there any last comments? Okay, we have a proposal. This is an item for information, but we do have a proposal in the seconder. So all those in favour, please. Please show. Unanimous, thank you. So that is authority delegated, of course, to the clerk to make that decision, and we're clear about that as a committee. So thank you. One very brief comment. I actually had a count up of the benches and made it 37. So we might just want to double check exactly how many there are before issuing that. There you go. Don't ever accuse councillors of not being proactive. And it was spitting with rain. Item, what are we on? 7B, public conveniences. The Town Centre Operations Manager has provided a written report. Again, thank you for the detail we have here. Now we have the recommendation, just to note the content of this, but appreciate we might want a little bit of discussion before we do, if that's the case. So are there any comments from councillors, please? No. Councillor Woodhead.
Yeah, just very briefly, I mean, having used these facilities fairly recently, they are obviously looking quite dated, but I mean, I think it does, so they are overdue for renewal and repair. But my main concern is that I know they are actually used quite a bit by the bus drivers and obviously market traders and so on. So there is a bit of throughput, but I do have concerns about how we protect it from vandalism and obviously, potential of sort of drug addicts and all that sort of stuff. So whatever additional safety measures without being too onerous we can have, I think would be helpful to protect that. But otherwise, no, I think it's a welcome idea, and yeah, and I think it's probably long overdue.
Councillor Strawn.
Thank you, Chairman. I always understood that the toilets were part of Century House, and as such, they belong to Central Beds Council. They clearly need to be done, and they're very difficult to keep in condition. They clearly need an upgrade. But do we have to get consent from Central Beds to do any of this, or should Central Beds be funding any of it?
Simon, do you have a comment on that?
My understanding is that we actually, the toilets were going to be out of commission, and it was pushed to the council to take them on, or we would lose the public toilets. So the council has taken that on, and it's down to us for the upkeep at no cost to Central Beds. Unfortunately,
I can confirm that, Simon. That's exactly right. We had to take it on, or they would have closed some years ago.
Yeah.
Lucky us. Wish I could have closed the whole of Century House. And Councillor Knight.
Thank you. So very supportive of the recommendation in here. Just be mindful of the fact that the long-term future of Century House is uncertain with respect to the transport interchange, and therefore, I guess my view would be that we should look for a refurbishment that's going to last sort of in the region of maybe 3 to 5 years rather than 10 to 20 years in terms of the level of investment we're willing to make.
I think that certainly sounds sensible. We know this committee has received a lot of reports this evening, and I hope it's clear to members how we're trying to get the wheels turning on a large number of things. But when a time comes to start talking about strategic layout of the market square, as I hope it will do in the next couple of months, certainly that will be top of the agenda of very many councillors. So that's a very, very good point. Are there any last comments on this, or can we note the recommendation? No. Okay, we will note that. Thank you. Item 8, public open session to adjourn for 15 minutes to allow members members of the public to address the council, to address the committee rather, any business relevant to this committee. So we have a couple of participants. And any comments from you, please show your virtual hand now. No.
Yes.
Oh, here we go. Hello, Councillor Ramsey.
Hello. Thank you very much. I just wanted to talk quickly about item 6C, the A-boards, and 7A, the street furniture. In the past, I have done a walk around the town with people from the RNIB and had looked at the inconvenience or people just being thoughtless about their A-boards and where we're having bollards and street furniture. So could I just, I mean, hope I'm not teaching you to suck eggs, Simon, but could we just please make sure that the A-boards are back close to the shop fronts? There seems to be a gradual creep down towards the curb, and it is necessary to have a gap between the A-boards and the curb. It's not only for people that have severe sight problems and partially sighted, so they really need to have them in the same place all the time so that they can make their way around the town, but also for young mothers with pushchairs and people that are having to use wheelchairs. So all I'm saying is, can you bear that in mind when you look at where the A-boards are going to be situated and the street furniture. And I think some of the bollards, particularly outside the White Hart, aren't altogether necessary. Perhaps have a look at, I can show you the one that actually needs to be removed. I can understand it might be there to prevent four-wheel traffic, but it also causes a hazard to pedestrians that are having problems. That's really all I wanted to say. Simon, can you take that on board, please? Or Chairman, can you ask Simon to take it on board? Thank you very much.
I'm sure Simon has heard what you've said, and I know it's something you have done rather longer ago than it should have been, and taken rather longer than it should have done. But it's important to make sure that these things join up, and Simon's heard what you said, and I'm sure that will be accommodated.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to leave the meeting now. Thank you,
That's
Chair.
okay. We're all going to leave the meeting now because
I'm not coming back.
So we have one exempt item. So thank you, Councillor Ramsey. Thank you, everybody, for joining. We will regroup. Councillor Knight.
No, I'm just waving goodbye. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay, we'll regroup in 2 minutes on the exempt items then, please. Thank you very much, everybody.